top of the morning to ya. I'm Liam the Leprechaun, and I've got a wee secret to share. ZJZDesigns.com has just unveiled their brand new St. Patrick's Day apparel. Featuring yours truly, of course. From cheeky tees to lucky prints, these designs are brimming with charm and plenty of gold. Whether you're heading to a parade or just feeling the Irish spirit, you look grand in these threads. So what are you waiting for? Skip the rainbow and head straight to ZJZDesigns.com. You'll find the pot of gold in your cart. No magic required. ZJZDesigns.com, where style is always in season.
What's up, Everplayers? The sun is finally coming out, and you know what that means. It's time to get off the couch and back on the field for the spring 2026 season.
We have a massive lineup this spring, but the clock is ticking. Registration for all spring leagues ends February 18th. Let's break down your week, starting with Monday night.
On Mondays, we're coming in hot with indoor volleyball at Tri-City, softball at TS Martin Park, turf soccer at Recreation Athletics, and pickleball at the KC Pickleball Complex.
For Tuesdays, you can catch us playing Super Rec kickball at Spires, sand volleyball at Pollywogs, more indoor volleyball at Tri-City, or bowling at Lucky Strike in Casey.
Midweek is huge. On Wednesdays, we've got kickball at Spires, hardball softball at Pacific Park, cornhole at Jay's Corner, and soccer at B Avenue and Bray Park.
On Thursdays, we keep it rolling with kickball at Spires and sand volleyball at Pollywogs. Then we wrap up the week on Sundays with softball at TS Martin Park.
Now, if your early spring is already full, don't sweat it. Our late spring leagues are also open for registration right now.
That's right. The deadline for these is March 16th. We've got co-ed flag football at B Avenue on Wednesdays and sand volleyball at Pollywogs on Sundays.
We also have 5 special one-day events for those who want some extra play or can't commit to a full season.
Mark your calendars for these dates. February 9th, turf soccer mix and match at Recreation Athletics. February 12th, Valentine's Day kickball mix and match at Spires.
Then we have February 16th, basketball pickup at Drew's Wellness Center. February 17th, indoor volleyball mix and match at Tri-City. March 26th, legendary 11th Masters of Putt-Putt at Frankie's Fun Park.
Whether you're playing for the trophy or just for the social hour at the bar afterward, there is a spot for you at Everplay.
So head over to everplaysocial.com to get your team registered before those deadlines hit. We'll see you on the field.
The All About Nothing podcast may have language and content
that isn't appropriate for some.
Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, Nothingers, to the All About Nothing podcast. This is episode number 292. I am Barrett Gruber. I am joined by Julie Zimmerman, who is the candidate for the Democratic nomination for the South Carolina House District 71. We're going to talk to her in just a second. Please subscribe and share the show. That's how we get new listeners. Also, please consider supporting the show financially by visiting theallaboutnothing.com and becoming an official member and proudly calling yourself a true Nothinger. We'll have more details on that at the end of the show. If you can't do that, please give us a 5-star review, a like, and follow us across social media. You can find links at theallaboutnothing.com. We're going to jump right into it. Hey, Julie, how are you?
Hey, Barrett, I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing well. Excited for your campaign. Excited to see that District 71 is going to actually have a Democrat on the ballot this year.
Yes, it's been quite a while. I've lived in District 71 since 2003, and there has been 2 Democratic challengers in that whole time.
That is a long time with basically an open candidacy. That is a long time.
Yes.
Well, tell us some about yourself. Tell us where you're from, where you grew up, that sort of thing.
Well, when people ask me that, I kind of say, well, I am from all over South Carolina because my dad was a football coach and high school football coach for 43 years. So it's sort of like being a preacher's kid, but not quite, moving a lot. So I was born in Spartanburg. Then, as I grew up, lived in Williston, Union, Lockhart. Then I lived in Turbyville. My dad coached at East Clarendon, and we lived there until 1985. And so I've got roots in the PD. That's where my grandparents from. They're from Scranton, Lake City area. If anybody's from down there, Country Cousins, that was my family's restaurant, which is still open in Atlanta. But then I graduated from Saluda High School. We moved there. And so in 93, I graduated from Saluda High. Then I went to USC Aiken and lived there for 5 years. Then lived in St. George for a little bit. And then I've been in Columbia since 2001. So in Irmo proper, but yeah.
That is a lot of traveling around. You'd almost think that you'd be able to wear the badge of military brat or something like that with all that moving.
Yeah, and having my dad coach at and teach at my high school, I didn't really get away with much.
I bet not. So we're gonna jump. I'm gonna just ask you straight out. What is it that inspired you to run this time?
Well, I've never run for anything in my whole life. I've always been active in politics and donated and volunteered. And then when Trump won for the second time, I felt like a death. I mean, I don't think I've grieved so hard, except when a family member passed away, honestly. And I just felt this calling, like, do something, do something. And then around January, I said, the bar is in hell. So I don't know what I don't know, but I'm smart and I have, drive and I'm good with people. I'm a therapist in my real life. So I help
Okay.
people solve their problems. So I can go to the state house and work and try and find the middle ground and try and, not only work for people in District 71, but also advocate and stand up and work for the people of South Carolina as a whole. And being from South Carolina all my life, I feel like I know the value system of most of the people that we surround ourselves with,
Yeah.
and I wanna give people another option. I wanna have people feel like, okay, there is another candidate that is approachable and will listen. And so then I decided to do the Emerge program, and I graduated from that in October. So that went from April to October. Met some wonderful women all across South Carolina. Courtney McLean, who's running for Congress, she's in my district. Several other my other sisters, Emerge sisters, ran in municipal races, and so we have about 6 or 7 of us that are running for different House seats. So, I always say that, that Emerge class, watch out 'cause we've got
Yeah.
some very powerful women.
Yeah.
Um
Absolutely.
and so I learned a lot, and then I've been doing a lot of trainings with the, state party, and now I'm in the Palmetto Leadership Academy because conservation and making sure that we're taking care of our renewable resources, not only for, thinking about overgrowth and overdevelopment since apparently everybody's coming to South Carolina, but the infrastructure's not there, and then hunting and fishing is such a fabric of who, we are as people. If, we don't have water and places for the fish and the wildlife to go, then that's gonna affect that part that's so important to South
Sure.
Carolina. So there's a lot of
Sure.
reasons why I'm running, but I just wanted to give people an option,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And ultimately, me being that option, I think stands out as a quality in a candidate because, um, can you go a little bit into the the feeling you had when Trump won that second? Because I know exactly what it is you're talking about. But for people that don't understand, it isn't just a disgust for Donald Trump. It for me, it's also reflective of what the Republican Party has become as a result of the personality of Donald Trump. How have you seen that in your district as well with people that you interact with?
Um, and we'll go to your first question, how did I feel when he won? I mean, I felt, like I said, like a family member had gotten into a terrible crash and I was grieving. I mean,
Sure.
I was sick for a week. I mean, I felt grief and I didn't know what to do. And um that motivated me to start to do something, to not feel helpless. And I see a little bit of that in my district. However, a lot of the flags and things, don't see that, you
Yeah.
know? Of course, I see a cyber truck here and there, and I go, "Ugh." But, when someone who was against the Bush administration and everything they stood for, um, to think that I want George Bush back, that tells me how far we've walked down the plank.
Sure.
Right? And it's going to be up to everyday Americans. I mean, like people that are listening, I want to stress, like, there's nothing like special. I don't come from a bunch of money. I'm having to raise everything. My parents aren't funding. I don't have, there's no lawyers or doctors in my family except an aunt that lives in, Tennessee. But I don't come from a place of privilege other
Yeah.
than white privilege. I'm a white lady in the South, so I acknowledge that. But everybody can learn to do their part. It may not be running for office. It may be providing mutual aid. It may be going to protest. It may be calling. It may be saying, hey, did you know this person's talking? Come with me to this meeting. So, I also want to just be like a symbol of you don't have to really know all the steps to be able to do something and to be able to be a voice for the people, like a real person that talks plainly, you
Right.
know. So often we have, politicians that, you know, don't talk real talk.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
want to be like, I feel like I'm like a working class candidate because that's my roots. I'm a working class person,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and I'll just say this, find a link in the show notes for your Act Blue account because you are accepting donations regardless of where they come from. Because
I'm accepting donations every day of the week. My website's gonna be coming up soon. So once I get that, I'll let you know so you can promote it.
yeah,
But just like across all socials, it's Julie Z 4SC, Julie Z, the word 4SC, and at Blue.
yeah,
And whether it's $5, a dollar, $7.10, $71, I was talking to a friend of mine about how much things cost. And so I was asking her, like, we want to do like 3 mailers, right? And I said, how much do you think 3 mailers for the whole district will be? And she was like, $884. And I said, no, try about $10,000.
oh yeah,
You know,
yeah,
a 100-yard sign, that's $1,000. So, think about those things. It's like you're not giving me the money and I'm going to be a responsible steward. But it's just the name of the game, unfortunately, until we get like things like ranked choice voting, which, Better Ballot SC is working for, but that's going to take a minute. But definitely, and I also stress that even though someone might not be able to vote for me because you might not live in the district, you can still donate and you can volunteer and you can spread the word. Do you know people that live in District 71? Hey, this chick, Julie Zimmerman, she's running, right? And I'm stressing to people that just because you can't vote for me and I'm not going to necessarily represent you from District 71 doesn't mean that when I get to Columbia that I'm going to be working to push back against the good old boy system,
yeah,
to speak truth to power, to make sure those white folks those white guys that think they're running everything, they don't run everything anymore.
right.
And that's
Absolutely agreed.
another reason why I'm running.
Where Zimmerman? Where does that come from? Is that German, Austrian?
That is a German name. That is my married name. I am divorced,
Okay.
but everything professional is Zimmerman. So, but my maiden name is Tillotson, and that's English. So I come from German, Scottish, English,
Well,
Irish. That, that's where my people came from. So
I'll just say this for some reason, and I don't officially know why, but we have a pretty good audience in Germany, Austria, in the UK. So, and they must be like-minded because they listen every single week. We do, however, three episodes a week now. But
hi guys.
so definitely, if you're in Germany or the UK, check out the links for the show notes because you could be helping America become better.
Yes, yes. And fun fact. The Dutch Fork area in 1781, my ancestors came over from Germany and there were the Boekniks. Now they're the
Oh,
Balkans, right? So 1781, Dutch Fork, that's my grandmother's family. So I have deep roots also in District 71.
I knew
Um,
about Boak Night. a while ago. I can't remember her first name, but she was a few years younger than me. But I think she was a dancer or blonde hair. I can't remember her. I can't
There
remember
was
her
a
name.
lot of us. In
Yeah.
1985, my mom and I counted up all of like the descendants from my great grandmother.
Yeah.
And in 1985, there was 96.
Goodness.
So,
That is a family reunion that needs a caterer. That's
it
what that
does.
needs.
And name tags.
So your Instagram and bio reads that you are an advocate for public education and healthcare for all. I have seen you at every gathering and protest that I have been to. Huge advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, equality, women's health. How has that played a role in your decision to run this time?
It's everything.
Yeah.
Because, I kind of follow the lead of Brown Jesus and what he would do. And I distinct that from Christian, I think that's been co-opted. But he hung out with people that were made fun of and disadvantaged. And I've always been like, I don't like bullies. I don't like people talking down to people. And even in elementary school, if I saw somebody getting picked on, I would kind of stand up. And, I think people should be able to live their life without any interference. Nobody's
Yeah.
bothering you. Nobody's, and I think that, the LGBT and the trans community needs to be able to live and love like they want. And with women's health, obviously, I'm a woman. I have a daughter, I've grown up in South Carolina. And what I do know is when I was my daughter's age in 1993, I had more rights than she does now. My mother in the 70s had more rights than she does now.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's sort of like it shows that the patriarchy is kind of cracking, and it's like the last, it's in the extinction burst, right? As a therapist, I'll use a clinical term. It's an extinction burst. So they're trying to grab onto power. But I always tell people, South Carolina is not a red state. So stop saying that. Stop asking yourself. We are a purple state. And as we see at all these events, there are people that may not agree on every single thing. And it kind of, let's get back to those politics where politics was kind of boring. It was policy stuff. And you could have a friend that voted for Bush, but you could still go out to dinner and you could talk about something. And it's like, okay, we don't agree on that, but we agree on that. I don't, think that you're against like the people I love, and I want to be a voice. And again, I recognize that I have a certain amount of privilege as a cisgender white woman in the South, and I'm going to use that privilege every chance I get. Whether that's, at legislation day, that kickoff, or going to a committee hearing, or calling, or, speaking out at a protest. I'm down for the cause. And so all of those things play into another reason why I'm so motivated to just have people get to know me and realize, like, she is kind of what she says she is,
Yeah.
She's walking the walk, just not like lip service. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what that, and it's interesting because I had a conversation today where someone asked me what essentially is the thing about equality for conservatives or people that are on the opposite opinion of me, and I said it's not necessarily that for the most part when you talk to anyone on either side, they're all in favor of equality, but it's how we balance that equality. It's where on let's say on the liberal side, on the progressive side, I look at equality as I'm here and I want to make sure that everyone can everyone has the opportunity to bring themselves up to here. And somehow we need government to try and equalize that equality. On the other side, they look at it as they're here and they want to bring us down to here to create that equality. And that's not what it is. That has nothing to do with what the progressives or the liberals want. It's about finding an equilibrium between the two. It's not bringing one down to bring one up. It's about bringing both of them to the same level. And I live my life trying to have the smallest negative impact on anyone that I possibly can. If I can have the positive income, I will explore that to the maximum effort. And as a candidate, I think that is something that it sounds like you want to do. You want to have the biggest possible positive income, or not income, the biggest possible positive outcome for everyone in your district, rather than just specifically targeting, or trying to hold back what is coming. Progress is always happening, regardless of how much we hold back the levee. It's coming. So kudos to
And
you on that.
I wanna make a little caveat. It's not just for District 71. When I go
Exactly.
to Columbia, I wanna represent positive change for the people of South Carolina and
Yeah.
be on committees and write bills and legislations that will tear back some of the destructive nature that we've seen over the past 22 years. And, I hear Jermaine Johnson talking all the time. It's like they've been in power for 22 years. It's time to give us a chance. I mean, like all of the problems we see, we haven't been in power.
Right.
So gerrymandered, all to get out. And so it's time to have common sense people that aren't also, bending over backwards for tyrants and people that, uh, to me, are just ripping up the fabric of our Constitution. And, one of my favorite historical mentors is John Adams. And we got due process because he actually represented the soldiers in the Boston Massacre.
Right.
And he made a point that, and that goes back to everyone on American soil, even if they're not a citizen, they have due process.
Yeah. Absolutely agreed. Let me ask you, what do you see the biggest needs in public education for South Carolina right now are? You're a parent. You have a child that in school or
She's graduated, but both of my parents were retired school teachers, high
okay.
school. And my great grandmother, before she passed before I was born, but she was a public school teacher. And I'm a product of public school education. And, I think one of the problems is that we don't trust teachers enough to make good decisions. Parents think they've gone to school with an education degree. Okay. So let's say your child comes home with a book that's like, oh, there's a little topic. Well, I read The Diary of Anne Frank when I was like, I don't know, in middle school, right?
Sure.
My parents they wouldn't have, they could have looked at it. Oh, I don't want her to know about this stuff. Oh my God, this might make my white child feel bad, right? Going back to learning about, right?
Right.
Slavery and stuff, right?
I mean,
So
it's
we need to
wrong,
tell
but right.
Right. We need to tell the real history. So I think that, teachers need to be respected. We need to be able to teach real history. This protective thing, like we need to shield things from children. I think that's a disservice. Like when my daughter was in elementary school, she learned that Christopher Columbus and all the other, conquistadors and all were slavers, were bad guys. No, did they tell them the graphic truth? No, but the fourth grade teacher told her enough to make her like, this is the real truth, right?
Right.
And I think, there's a way to teach children as they get older, the messages get more, like more real and you can have more discussion. So
Yeah.
I think that also, the voucher program, which my opponent voted for,
Yep.
siphons money from into charter schools, and charter schools do not have to follow any, if your kid has a 501 or an IEP or anything like that, they don't even have to admit your child. There's no services. So if your child has ADHD and needs longer to take, a test or, they don't have to honor any of that. And nothing against charter schools. But our tax paying dollars should not go to those schools. If people want to do charter schools, just like regular private schools, they don't get any funding from the state.
Right.
And so I think a lot of like art programs need to be, everybody needs to take art or music or drama. All of those things are enriching programs. They let you find your people. They let you find your place. And so when you ask me I think it's a layered question as
Sure.
as you can tell by my answer, but I think, also people acting like they know what they're doing and they've not taken any education classes. They haven't been trained, and, we have the superintendent of education that got her master's degree in 6 months, and there's no way possible. I mean,
I call that an honorary degree. If I'm
yes,
being honest with you,
yes.
yeah.
So that's a layered question, but
And I agree with you. I think one of the problems that we have here in South Carolina has a lot to do with the fact that we have it's that equality thing again. Our politicians have created a value system to the education that's being received, where public education is being viewed as not good enough for most students. So we've come to this idea that corporations can educate our children better. And a lot of these charter schools are owned by corporations that are now basically receiving South Carolina state welfare money to operate their schools. And one of the messages I don't think gets out there enough, because so many of these voters out here hear the word welfare and they think, oh, welfare is something where people are stealing welfare. And I disagree with that ideal until you start giving it to corporations. And corporations have found their way into the prison system and into the education system. PragerU is exactly explicitly is an example of what I see wrong with corporations in the education system, because they can control the curriculum. And now where charter schools are being fought across the country, PragerU comes in and says, oh, well, why don't we just sell you this curriculum, where now they can manipulate what the students are being taught. When I was in school, I think one of the things that I remember for school was there wasn't this greater curriculum program that was available to all the teachers. The teachers that I graduated in 97, and the teachers they built their own curriculum based off of the textbooks that were available. And those textbooks were being printed by, the major textbooks companies, but at least the teachers were giving us. I had AP history and AP American history teacher who didn't teach out of the textbook at all. He was a retired Air Force colonel who served along the RAF in the UK for like 40 years, came back to the States as a retired officer, and then took up teaching for another 40 years. And everything he taught was based on everything he learned while being overseas. When it came to American history, he learned a lot about what he did because of the records and things and the stories that were told from, his being in Europe for so long. So, there's a lot to be said for teachers having the ability to create curriculum based on the materials that they have available.
And, and with the PragerU, you got to realize charter schools, they don't have to be certified.
Right.
Okay. Now, I know there's a program that the PACE program, where you can get certified, like if you have a degree, but you're going through it as you're like teaching someone, as an accountant, and they're like, you know what, I want to teach business and I want to be a public school teacher. That gives them that option. But
Right.
with a lot of charter schools, there's no, and so it's sort of like worksheet learning, right?
Right.
It's sort of like if me as a therapist, if all I did was worksheets, it's not much growth. It's teaching people kids to be like parrots, and we need critical thinking skills, right?
Yep.
And we need young people to be able to say, I disagree with that. And that's okay. Let's talk about why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's
And
that there are, I think that some of the curriculum that I see, and one of the reasons that my children are homeschooled is because I don't look at the education system currently under the regime of the current superintendent and governor as being a well-rounded enough education. They aren't, they in public education, it doesn't feel like, especially at their grade level, they're 11. It doesn't, what I see in some of that isn't a failure of the teachers. It is a failure of the availability of the materials to build a good curriculum, which is why I think ultimately they think it's cheaper just to bring in PragerU and let them build out the curriculum, which is disappointing. As a representative for District 71, what are some of the ideas that you think that that South Carolina should do to resolve this issue?
well, again, I think it goes back to we need to have teachers in on this decision making. They're the
Sure.
ones, administrators. My dad has a master's in administration, right? Both of my mom was, a national teacher, right? And so, that program, I can't remember but it's a thing for public school teachers. Um, but, having them in on decisions like what are some of the problems? Okay, let's have the subject matter experts help us decide and not people that have never stepped foot in a classroom. I mean, that's sort of like me going to tell my dentist how to put in a filling and I'm going to jack somebody's mouth up, right?
Right.
We
Yeah.
don't need that Novocaine. Let's just, drill in their mouth, right?
To
And
defend dentists in that situation, though, my last filling I had replaced, I did ask for no Novocaine. I did not want to be. I didn't. They. It was. And you're making a
are you
face.
talking to your therapist about that?
I don't know. Let me make sure to get your information afterwards because I'm sure there's a lot just listening to me you could probably diagnose. So
Well, I don't do that, and also, if I know someone ethically, I cannot be your therapist, but I've got some great names I can refer you to, but, I think, going back to your question is, like, how do we fix this? We need, again, to trust the teachers, trust the administrators, we need to put in things like I'm a big advocate for having a professional licensed either social worker or therapist in every school, right? That
sure.
knows the children. The children can trust whether that's an elementary level or middle school, intermediate, high school, senior, however, the school system's broken up in that particular district. But, you know, as someone that's worked with, I call them littles and middles.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And teenagers I work with, if they had someone at school, and that's not to say, they would come see me, but to have someone like I go see Miss So and so once a week because I'm having, suicidal ideations or I'm having issues fitting in or, I'm having high anxiety because I've got a workload because I'm really ambitious and I want to get the scholarship, but I'm having these overthinking and rumination that's, affecting how I do my schoolwork. And so, or more serious things that may be happening at home and just different things. And because licensed therapists and social workers are mandated reporters, it's a proactive approach. I think a lot of what we're seeing is a reactive approach, but we need to be proactive
Oh,
in
agreed.
how, and again, I think having teachers come into these committee hearings and like we're writing legislation. Well, have we talked to any teachers?
Right.
Not one? Then how do we know it's even going to work?
Yeah.
So I think
100%
part
agree.
of it is having those subject matter expert, whatever it's about in the room, right? And inviting them in for conversations instead of thinking, I know best. I've got an office, I've got an assistant, I got a .gov address, and I'm a House of Representative member, so I must know everything about everything. No. Someone asked me a question and I don't know. I don't know. Let me get back to you. Or you have this concern. Tell me more about this. Maybe what you tell me can help me solve that problem, because I see, public service, and especially in politics, as we're problem solvers. We're customer service representatives, and we're problem solvers.
Sure. Yeah,
And
absolutely
we work
agreed.
for the people, and I think too many people have forgotten that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And so
Yeah.
I want to be the voice of the people, the working class candidate, if you will.
Well, between us, when you get elected, I definitely want to find out how many of the people you're working in committees with are narcissists and sociopaths. I want to.
I'll have a little checklist.
I can identify them already, so that's not even an issue. And
Well,
I'm not allowed to diagnose them.
as a diagnostic nerd, I love the DSM-5 TR.
Yeah.
I find myself, especially personality disorders, I'm like, check, check, check,
Yep.
check,
Yep.
check. So we'll
Yeah.
discuss.
Yeah. Off
We're not
air.
gonna, yeah.
Yeah, off air. Well, I mean, moving into mental health as part of healthcare, obviously huge across the state of South Carolina. What are your priorities when it comes to expanding and improving access to healthcare here in the South Carolina?
Well, we need to look at the areas like Horry County. Okay, that is not only desert for access to healthcare, like traditional healthcare, but there's not a lot of therapists or psychiatrists or psychologists. So people have to do virtual sessions and like work with people like me in Columbia because they can't find a therapist, right?
Right.
So I think it's a multi-layer because we need people to want to get into the profession. And I'm not saying making the standards easier or anything like that, but we need to have situations where it's like, okay, my home county of Saluda, right? Is there a licensed therapist? If someone lives in Saluda, they're going to have to drive.
Yeah.
So can we open up centers where there's people that are there, whether it's private practice to like award grants or build community health that's not the Department of Mental Health, but it would be like South Carolina, something named. But
Sure.
to have that as not a bureaucratic situation, but as partnering also with public private companies, right? And having saying, so you're, corporation X here, this is your industry. Let's partner with you and build this mental health care center, right? And I know there's a lot of dynamics with that, but I think first it's looking at where are these deserts, right? In Columbia, it's pretty easy for someone to find. If they want to find a therapist, we got plenty of, right?
Yeah.
But there are places that don't. And so I think when we start to try and solve a problem, we need to look at where are the gaps and fill in those gaps. And maybe those could be used as models for, more populated areas where there is access. But, and one thing that I will always do is work with Medicaid clients. I don't have to because I'm fully licensed. It's hard to find a fully licensed therapist that still works with Medicaid clients.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I offer a Medicaid client that might have to go to the Department of Mental Health and not say anything, but to have a client that can come in private practice and, your therapist is not going to change. And, there's a lot of turnover, which they burn those therapists out. God bless them. I mean, I feel for them. It's overworked. And that's why a lot of people, kind of go out of the Department of Mental Health and you've got a lot of turnover that affects the continuity of care. But to have, a Medicaid client that can come to a private practice that gets treated with, respect and doesn't feel like a number, and we can get to really at the work and at the root of things. That's something that, I'm going to promote that more, yes, there's a lot of things, hurdles and stuff to get through, but sometimes we have to work and we have to stand up for people that don't have regular insurance or can't pay private pay, and so that's also something that I think encouraging fully licensed professionals to remember that, you know, we are called into this business to be a helper of people.
Yeah.
And, we don't make a lot of money anyway. So
Right.
why don't we serve some people that, you know, we can actually really, really impact their home, their community, and make them feel like, wow, this person sees me. And now I feel like, I'm not at the lower rung of society. Right?
Yeah. And you talked about those deserts. When you have those deserts when it comes to healthcare, those deserts that you have that the overlapping of the healthcare desert or the food deserts and you when it comes to hospitals, regional or rural hospitals, you find that those deserts happen, but there are still people that live in those places. And the reason that we are seeing those deserts become more and more is not because people are moving away from those areas, but because those areas wind up not having companies, corporations or otherwise, that will continue to have them if they're not making a profit. So then you have the problem with mental health being a profit-based system because of the corporate impact of it, the health insurance, things like that. One of the difficult things about finding, even in Colombia, a licensed therapist, fully licensed therapist, is the insurances that they wind up working with, or that they'll be in network with, and it's not just because of the nurses it's not just because of the therapists themselves. It's because in order to be in network with a Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, you have to accept what they bill or what they're willing to pay for the service, on top of whatever co-payments are available and things like that. But healthcare across the country has become such a um, the idea of being a healthcare worker is so unappealing for so many people now because of the necessary profitability of it. And ultimately, to me, that goes completely against the Constitution, because the Constitution guarantees us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if healthcare is now run by an industry that's only looking at numbers and not at people, then you've taken the happiness, the pursuit of life. You've taken the life out of it,
Yeah.
and you've taken away the happiness of it, because now you're just working for the dollar and not working to see the benefit for people. I don't think anyone gets into medicine or politics for the money of it. I don't think they do. I know doctors who went to school for the 8 years on top of the internships, and then finding a hospital that would hire them, that don't make that they have more money. They pay more towards their student loans from 25 years ago
Mhm.
than they do a year, and the interest keeps piling up. So I absolutely believe that at some point, whether it's state government or federal government, at some point there has to be some acknowledgement of the crevasse that we have created with this profitability issue, and recognize that the only way we're going to work ourselves out of it to have a happier, healthier community of all of us is that we have to take away the industry that's really crushing it with this idea of profitability.
Well, I can just solve this problem today. Okay.
Here we go.
The health care that senators and congresspeople and people at the government level, right, whether that's in state or federal, why don't we just open it up for everyone?
Yeah.
And bing, bang, boom, it's a wrap, right? So that's another thing that people have wrapped their head around the axle and don't realize that they're voting against their own interest. It goes back to the Lee Atwater strategy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And making a white man think they're better, even if they're living in a trailer, than any black or brown person,
Right.
right? And so I think that there is people that don't understand that if I voted for someone that wants, Medicare for all, the same health care our elected officials get. That we should fund public schools. So, I don't have to go to a charter school. I don't have to homeschool. There's an option for everyone, sort of like when we went to, right?
Right.
Back in the 90s, back when they had black and white TV, right?
I was gonna say we had 3 tiers of school. We had private school, we had we had religious schools, and we had public schools. Those are the only ones I remember. I don't remember charter schools from when I was in school or when we were in school. We had St. Mary's was down the street, St. Pius was down the street, and then there were some private schools that I think they're still open today. But even I have friends that work in charter school program in Georgia that they aren't making millions and millions of dollars because Georgia handles it a little bit differently. Like the voucher program is not, it's not the same as in South Carolina, where they don't just yank money out of the public school fund and throw it into what is essentially a private school that can still pick and choose which students it wants. If testing is an issue, then they get to choose which students take tests so that their numbers always look good. It's they've moneyballed the situation for themselves.
Yeah. And again, anyone listening, if you're employed at charter school, I have friends that are teachers at charter schools, their children. I'm not dogging that out. I'm just saying our tax-paying money should not be siphoned to take away programs to fund new schools. It should be like a private school like King Academy in Saluda County. They don't get any state money. It's paid through tuition, right?
Yeah. Again, it's that equality of, and in this case, the state funding of bringing the value of the public school down so we can raise the money going into a charter. It doesn't have to be this way. We had the state of South Carolina had a budget surplus several years in a row that they ultimately send us back refunds. Don't send me, as much as I enjoy getting money in the mail, use that money in the education system. Use that money in the healthcare system to and ultimately it's going to take representatives like you to say, whoa. We made some interest. What are we doing? Why are we sending this money back to people? Because we want to get reelected? Let us do best during the time we have.
You said it. They're sending money back because it was like the Trump check.
Oh yeah.
Oh, McMaster sent me money. Let me reelect him. So and so is my representative. He helped that, right? And so I just think it's time to speak truth to power and talk plainly and have conversations and recognize, like, hey, we don't have to agree on everything, but what are some things that we do agree on?
Right.
Can we work on those? And the stuff that it's like hard stops, maybe we can just put those on the back burner.
Yeah.
For a moment.
I want to ask about your social media before we get done here. You use Facebook, Instagram, TikTok to connect with your voters. Have those platforms helped you hear from people in your district about, and what have you learned from that?
TikTok is a little more varied because there's
Sure.
people that follow me from like Utah, Oregon, Washington State. I've connected with a lot of people in South Carolina. Instagram and Facebook are a little more centralized. I am on Blue Sky as well. But one of the things that I'm hearing is like, oh, someone's running, right? There's some excitement. How can I help? And another thing is like me finding out what is important to the voters of District 71, because those are the folks that are going to be, electing me.
Yeah.
When I win, right?
Absolutely.
They're going to, be knocking on those doors. They're going to be making those phone calls. They're going to be investing in me so I can invest in the district and in the state. But one thing that I've heard over and over again is overdevelopment, data centers, natural resources, infrastructure, fix the damn potholes, right? I mean, I think there needs to be better cooperation, especially like in Irmo, we don't have a public works, right? Like for street and all of that stuff. And as someone that used to work in sales, and I dealt with a lot of these type of municipalities, so I kind of know a little bit about how things should be done. Because
Yeah.
like my customers taught me how to actually fix a pothole one time, like and then tamped it and did all the things and all that. But like you can't just throw gravel in a pothole and then it rains and then the pothole, people are, I had to get my tire replaced because I hit a pothole just like 2 weeks ago, right? And
Goodness.
so that's one thing that I've really heard. And of course, I'm always looking for more input, more ways to connect with voters of District 71. But I've been going to the big meetings, which is the Ballantyne, Irmo, Chapin, Dems.
Yeah.
The meetings are second Monday of every month at Zorba's, 5:30 to come to eat, 6:30 meeting, 7:30 hard stop. The women that run those meetings is a hard stop, and I appreciate that. But I know that there's going to be other things that I'm going to hear from voters,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to what are your issues? What do you want me to focus on? Because maybe something that I'm already interested in maybe align, or it might be something like, tell me more about that, or I don't know anything about that. Let me go find out, and then I'm going to, let you know. But the main issue I've heard right now is the overdevelopment. People, of course, housing is an issue, but let's be, responsible with the land use and maybe reuse instead of putting up new things. I think there's a lot of things that we can do.
Yeah.
Instead of um, tearing down trees to put up a parking lot. That's not, and we don't want to turn into the Lorax.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm really focused on conservation. I'm doing that Palmetto State Leadership Academy with conservation voters of South Carolina. I'm really learning a lot. And, as someone that, is not a hunter or fisherman, but I like things that the hunters catch. I like
Sure.
some venison. I like a good fish fry, right? So I want the people to be able to also not say, okay, well, we're putting this thing up, so half of your yard's gone, right?
Yeah.
Eminent domain. We're going down a rabbit hole, Barrett, but
Oh, I
I
know.
have some, you know, um, ideas about how we can push back against people that don't live here, that are dumping money, and once things are built, they're going to leave. And then it's, clear cut destruction.
Yeah.
I think there's a better
Absolutely.
way.
What would you say to voters who are undecided or new to voting in the local races about why their participation matters?
Well, all politics is local.
That's
One,
true.
right? To enact the greatest amount of change, local, right? If you don't see, if you don't like what you see, and that's made you, I don't care. I don't want to, right? I get that. But just know that you have a candidate in me that wants to listen, that's approachable, that talks like a real human, and cares about your life. I mean, I'm a therapist. I care about how people live their lives, and I spend every day helping people solve problems creatively. And it's not about me. I'm not running because I want power or have you know, something else I want to run for. But just because you may feel disaffected or feeling like I can't do anything, well, in order to create ripples, imagine yourself standing at Lake Murray, right? And you throw a pebble, right? It ripples. Well, somebody else comes beside you. Hey, friend, throw a pebble, right? Guess when we start feeling like, oh, the pebble that I'm throwing along with everyone else is going to create a wave.
Sure.
And so each of us have, you know, we need to realize that we're not helpless and there's something that I can give back and volunteer, donate, get involved. I'm telling you, through this last year, being involved with 5051, helping planning protests, then deciding to run for office, doing the Emerge program, getting to know some wonderful people like yourself and other people that I would have never known if what we were dealing with, we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so out of something really frustrating and sometimes terrible news, like we heard this weekend, can come something, meaningful and beautiful and make us get out of our comfort zones. And so that's my message to the voters of South Carolina, voters of District 71. Also, we are not a red state. We are a purple state, and District 71 is the only seat in all of Richland County.
A blue county.
That is held by a Republican.
Yeah.
And I think it's time for the voters to rise up, speak truth to power, and elect me so I can reflect the values of the people of District 70.
Yeah, absolutely. Volunteer opportunities for people? How
Yes,
can they get a hold of you?
I'm going to send you my Google form for my volunteer, but my email, if anyone is interested, juliez4sc@gmail. Again, the word 4, not the number. At Blue, I'm going to send you that link so you can attach it. Julie Z for SC. Any socials, Julie Z for SC. And so if anybody hears this, listening to this, and you want to go follow me, send me a message and go, hey, let's have a conversation. Let me know you heard me and Barrett talking.
Well, Julie, I think it's fantastic that you're running. I'm really glad that there's going to be a candidate on the ballot to go against the incumbent, because that does not seem to be happening enough for District 71. I live in District 88, where I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, Chuck was fantastic.
Oh, he did. I mean, the inroads was an 11-point swing, which is fantastic. And fun fact, my mom used to work with Chuck's wife. So they knew each other. When my parents met Chuck, they already knew each other. Which is
how cool is that? How cool. Yeah, Chuck's fantastic. And I don't know what he's going to decide on, whether or not we're going to see him on the ballot again, but I will be there to support him that whole way, and all of the candidates running, because I think it's just important that there be an opposition to the status quo, and the status quo in South Carolina has been on a downward trend for 22 years. So, well, Julie, thank you again. Again, people check the show notes, because there are links there for Act Blue, where you can make donations to Julie's campaign. It pays for everything from signs to stamps to the mailers. And ultimately, one of the things that we found out when I was running Matt Villardobo's campaign out of Rock Hill is that it takes at least 2 mailers to get somebody's attention. So it's costly. It's absolutely something that's costly and unfortunate, because people should just be willing to do the education of the voters, what's available to vote for on their own. And
this is why we need ranked choice voting. It would eliminate a lot of this.
Agreed. 100%.
Another podcast topic for another day.
Oh, we'll have you on for it too. Absolutely. Well, Julie, again, thank you very much for being on the show. Again, check the show notes for all of Julie's social medias, as well as the link to the Act Blue. You can email her as well. Those will be in the show notes, so please do that. Julie, I know you have to get out to Sumter for
a community event.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I appreciate you having me on. I am looking forward to coming back and having some more discussions. And I guess I'll see you out at a protest or at a community event.
I'm planning on pulling you in and some of your other Democratic candidates into a town forum at some point where we can have a whole discussion on what is going to make South Carolina a better state for everyone. So,
will you just go ahead and mark me down? Just make sure you check with me, because my calendar's filling up. So.
I bet it is. You and everybody else. Absolutely. Again, Julie, thank you very much. It's going to do it for this episode number 292. Links to all of our past episodes, podcast platforms, merchandise, and social media are available on our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com. And if you think our financial model of giving away free content and entertainment is silly and you're in the giving mood, why not become an official Nothinger and support the show? Members get early access to this episode as well as exclusive content. Visit members.theallaboutnothing.com or find a link on our webpage. You can also give us a one-time donation through the same link. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can call and leave us a message, 803-672-0533. You can email the show at theallaboutnothing.com, or you can join our Discord server, links found on our webpage. Thanks for listening, everyone. You all stay safe, be kind, and keep your hands to yourself. The All About Nothing podcast is a product of Big Media and produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow Everything Cake, the band, at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff, the producer, for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the Producer. You can follow me across social media by visiting Linktree/Barrett Gruber. And you can follow Zach King on Linktree/AAN Zach. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. To find links to our social media, podcast platforms, and merchandise to support the show, as well as past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can email theshow@theallaboutnothing.com, or you can call our number and leave a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our sister shows. What the Pod Was That with Carrie, Zach, and myself. Welcome to Wonderland with Ami. Politically Speaking with Erica, Kirsten, and Emily. And Black, White, and Blue in the South with Dr. Jamil Brooks and Bill Kimmler. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe and punch that notification bell. Thank you for listening, and hear us next week. The preceding podcast is solely owned by the host or hosts and is distributed by Big Media, LLC. Copyright 2026.